Next question. And this refers back to a discussion we had, when they asked it, it had just aired, but this now will be a couple of weeks ago, where we talked on the podcast about attraction and sinful lust and actions that we take part in because of the sinful lust that we have. And so here was the question. It said, you said in that podcast that a certain type of attraction is okay, but your actions based upon those attractions outside of a heterosexual marriage is what winds up being a sin. So where does the line for lust come in between the thoughts that you have based on that attraction and then sinful lust? I guess what they're asking is, how do you know where you cross a line?
Well, but here's what I would say, and I know we were talking originally about homosexuality, lesbianism, those kind of things. Lust is separate for all of that. Lust is a thing, any attraction that, so yes,
attraction is a temptation.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So it's a separate category from what I do physically.
Exactly.
Even though Jesus says if you've lusted after one in heart, you've already committed adultery. Jesus doesn't literally believe that you have committed adultery. You know what I'm saying? He's not saying the moment a man or a woman who is married thinks about having sex with another person, boy, their marriage is blown up.
Yeah.
He does not believe that. That is not what he's saying. He's saying the consequences to the person of taking the body of another person, and I say all they are to me is a sexual function. They are to be used for my sexual gratification. So I will turn them over in my mind, and I will use them as I would use anything else. It doesn't hurt that person at all. It does huge damage to me because I've taken something that is a full human.
An image bearer.
Yeah, an image bearer of God, and I've reduced them for my gratification. So it doesn't really matter what the attraction is. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when he goes and says, if you yell this word at a person, it's like murdering them. Well, he doesn't literally think it's the same as you killing a person, because if I just yell at them, they're still alive. But when I kill a person, they are dead. Jesus is aware of how that works. But the damage that gets done in me by allowing anger to brew in me that I can just spew at people and act like it doesn't matter. It may not matter to the car that's driving by that they ever know what I said. My heart is formed in a certain way that does the same damage to me that leads to that kind of stuff.
That's good.
Yeah, I think ultimately when you try to figure out what the line is between attraction and lust, I think it's about your intentions, and so attraction's not wrong in any way, and I think that's just important to even get into. Attraction means that I am drawn towards something. So I can be attracted to, I mean, once again, I get that in sexual it's different, but I can be attracted to certain flowers that I look at a flower and go, wow, I'm drawn to that for some reason. There's something I find beautiful. There's something I find captivating. Certain of us are attracted to certain kinds of music over other. There's something that pulls me towards that. And it's not wrong that whether I'm married or non-married, that I would walk past another person and go, wow, that person is gorgeous. Or even to notice certain aspects of that person, certain body parts of that person, to notice that and find it attractive. The intention, and I think once again Dallas would say it's not the look that's a problem, it's the second look. That when I walk by and I just look, my eyes are going to see things, because that's what Jesus gets to, and he goes, well, if the problem is your eyes, gouge them out. Which Jesus isn't saying go and gouge out your eyes.
Right.
He's saying the problem is not what you see. It's not be careful little eyes what you see. It ultimately is the intention behind the look. It's when I walk past and I go, wow, that's a beautiful woman. You know, and then I look and I have an intention, as you've said, to use them as an object.
I was going to say, that's the moment that you violate the image of God in them.
That's right.
And that, if there is a line, I hate those words,
Yes.
but that's where it gets crossed.
Yeah, once I take it, this person in my mind goes from a full person who they can say yes or no. Very few people are lusting after anybody that they don't ultimately control in their mind.
Sure.
that they don't get to write the story the way they want to write it.
The only way it can work.
That's right. And so I have now I've turned something that God intended to be a full image bearer, fully capable of deciding how to interact with me, all of those things, and I've turned them into object. What the attraction is, whether it's male to male, male to female, female to female, whatever that is, that's not the issue.
Yes.
The issue is what is happening in me.
Well, and it's the intention, and it's the intention to live in the world. And I'm take away for lust for a moment. We'll come back to it. It's the intention to live in the world in the order God intended things to live. We were talking about pets in the last episode. People were upset, may have gotten upset about that, but there is a way in which God designed the world and human beings to function within that world. And to function God's way is to flourish God's way. And what Jesus is getting to, and I heard someone recently preach on these verses and what they said, and I think this is absolutely huge. And for much of my life, I've been teaching young people about this, and this is the way I've said it is, your imagination is just as real as what happens in the world. And we don't think of it that way. That when I choose to imagine something in my mind, Jesus says, that is real, and it holds weight. And not just to you, but to the way you interact with people. That when I choose to see human beings as objects to be used for my pleasure, that is going to change how I not only interact to whether I ever interact with that woman or not. It's going to change how I interact with my spouse, how I interact with people at my workplace. It's going to, in non-sexual ways, affect how I interact with other people in my life. And with anger, it's the same thing. They're not necessarily objects to be used. They're obstacles to be overcome. People are just frustrations. When we say things like, life would be great if I didn't have to deal with people, that isn't, and I know it's a joke, it is an un-Christ-like way to view the world, to say that people are problems to me living a good life. And Jesus is saying that imagination, because it is our imagination where we interact with God. Well, it is in that imaginative space of who we are in that soul. And if I have corrupted that with anger and lust and deception and greed, it becomes, as you were just talking about with character, it becomes more difficult, not from God's point of view, from my point of view, to interact with God.
Mm-hmm. And it violates the law of love, which
Yes.
is what it all
Totally
comes down to.
the law of love.
So that's, again, the person wants to know about the line. Again, I don't like that terminology, because I think anytime you ask a question based on, okay, where is the line where I cross from not sin to sin? I think that's always a problematic question.
You're probably already in there already.
Yeah. I think what is a better way to approach life is not to say, okay, God, show me the line so that I can get right close to it and not tick you off in sin, but to say, like you said, what is best for human flourishing? What is the law? What does love require of me to do? And I think if you ask that question, then the line doesn't matter.
No.
I get why that's an important question for you to ask, but I would just say, maybe lean the other direction a little bit and ask the other question. It might be better for you.
Well, and I just want to encourage you to try something in this, whoever is asking this question, because I believe that this is a genuine question. This has been
too.
for
Absolutely.
most of my life.
Yeah,
This
too.
has been if not the chief. I've now learned it's not the chief struggle. I would have said my whole life this is the chief struggle. I got lots of other problems that led to this, but this has been a presenting problem in my life.
Well, in our current culture, sexuality is the thing that gets presented to all of us. It's a big deal. It is the deal in our world. And so it begins to feel like it's the issue for most of us. There are often really bigger issues for almost all of us.
And so I was just having this conversation a couple days ago with some other disciples of Jesus from some of our discipleship communities, and we were having a conversation specifically about lust. And what I said was, I have spent most of my life, the advice I was given most of my life is, when you see an attractive woman or a skimpily dressed woman, is to bounce your eyes. You bounce your eyes.
Yeah.
You see it, you move on. And I said that has been a failure for me my entire life. And the reason, and what I said was the reason why was, and this other person who grew up like I did, I grew up in what's often referred to as kind of purity culture. We had a lot of purity culture stuff, which was the worst possible thing you could do was think of a woman sexually to do anything. And so what ends up happening is it puts, honestly, still a wrong emphasis. Even though God desires us to be pure, it puts this emphasis on it that doesn't end up being very helpful.
That's right.
And what we said was, the conversation we had is, when I say the problem is me even looking at a woman, Jesus never said the problem is looking at a woman.
That's right.
And once again, Jesus was talking in a period of time where most, you could see a woman was like maybe here or a little bit more, not much at all. They're incredibly modest. And he's saying lust is still the problem. It's the intention. So this is what I said I've been doing. I go to the gym every day. And so, as you can imagine, that it is very difficult sometimes to even exist at the gym and lust not to be a problem. And so what I've said I do is, if I notice something that stirs up that kind of attraction in me, I do bounce my eyes. But the first thing I do is I now pray for that person as an image bearer of God. I say, God, I know that woman has hopes and dreams, and I know she matters to you. She is not my possession.
That's right.
Help her have a wonderful day today. And I'm telling you, because as you talk about love, what it does is what I'm still doing when I say I'm just going to bounce my eyes, and I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to think about it. What I'm saying is that woman's still an object. It needs to be an object I need to avoid, not a person I should move towards in love. That there is a way that Jesus is asking us in our imaginations, can you begin to stop seeing people as objects and people to be loved? In order to do that, you have to remove this lust from your life. And so that's been one thing over the past while that I have done is, if I notice the attraction, which isn't sinful, instead of allowing it to move towards lust, I go, let me pray for this person, because that's a woman who's made in God's image, and she probably has people in her life who care about her, and she doesn't belong to me. She belongs to God.
And what you've started to do is you have now begun to love her, but in addition to that, you are now loving your wife.
That's right.
Sure, yeah.
You know, you've brought love back into all of those relationships.
Well, and I also want to hit on that when we talk about the imagination is real, and we miss this about prayer sometimes. That prayer is also real.
Yes,
of course
it is real.
And I am loving that woman,
Yes.
even though we may never speak, and we treat it like, and I heard someone say this the other day about how, and I get why. I get why the phrase thoughts and prayers has been, it almost means nothing. And honestly, it's a negative for many people if a tragedy happens, say, oh, thoughts and prayers. Yeah. But prayer, and this is what Jesus is it's a way God shares his power with us. He allows us to get to enter in and have this relationship. It doesn't mean that whatever I pray for happens the way I want it to, but God goes, hey, I'm inviting you into a relationship where occasionally when you pray for something, our wills line up, and I go, sure, let me bless what you just prayed for. And so, just as my imagination does damage to me and my relationship with that woman through lust, my same imagination, when it's directed towards love, does bless that person's life and blesses my life. And I just think that's a huge thing for us to keep in mind.
Yep.
Yep, that's good.
Yeah. Okay.